Today's AI models, they feel like straight up magic, right? They can write poems, they can generate code, they can summarize a huge article in just a few seconds. But there's a catch, a really big one, actually, that can make them totally unreliable. So, what is it? And more importantly, what's the solution that's changing the entire game?
So let me ask you this. Can you completely trust your AI? It seems like a simple question, but the answer? Well, it's not so simple. We've all seen it happen. An AI gives you an answer that sounds so confident, so plausible, but it's just completely wrong. And that uncertainty is a huge roadblock for businesses that need accuracy. So what is really going on under the hood?
Well, this whole problem actually has a name: hallucination. And here's why it happens. A standard large language model, or LLM, is basically taking a closed book test. It's trying to answer your questions based only on what it memorized from its training data. And when it doesn't know the real answer, well, sometimes it just makes one up.
So, okay, if the big problem is a closed book exam, the solution seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? Let's just give the AI an open book. And that, right there, is the perfect analogy for a technology called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short. This is a complete game changer. Instead of being a student who just has to rely on whatever they manage to cram into their memory, RAG turns the LLM into a researcher. It can now look things up in a library of trusted, up-to-date documents before it even tries to give you an answer. This grounds it in reality with facts and context it just wouldn't have otherwise. And the difference this makes is just huge. Let's break it down. On the left, you've got your standard LLM, just pulling from its generic training data. It's basically guessing. But over on the right, the RAG-powered LLM is pulling from your specific verified documents. The result? A massive drop in hallucinations and the power to get answers from private knowledge, not just whatever's on the public internet. So this open book exam idea sounds great. But how does it actually work in the real world? Well, it's a really clever process that turns all your raw data into a reliable source of truth for the AI. Let's break down that workflow. At its heart, the whole RAG process really boils down to 4 key stages. First, you've got to prepare your knowledge base. These are the textbooks for the exam. Then, you store all that info in a special kind of database. After that, when a question comes in, the system retrieves the most relevant bits of info. And finally, it uses that context to generate a solid, fact-based answer. And here it is, the whole shebang in one picture. Think of this as the master blueprint. It shows the entire journey, from the raw documents on the left, through the whole processing pipeline, all the way to that final, much smarter answer on the right. This is the plan that lets an AI look before it leaps. All right, let's zoom in a bit. We're going to start with that very first crucial step, because before the AI can read from the open book, we have to build the library for it. Think about it. You can't just toss a 500-page report at an AI and say, figure it out. The first step is something called chunking. You take your big documents, your PDFs, your text files, and you slice them up into smaller, more manageable paragraphs or sections. This makes all that information way easier to search through. And it's a really simple but powerful idea. As you can see, a single document gets loaded in and bam, it's transformed into chunk 1, chunk 2, and so on. Each little chunk is its own piece of information that the system can now index and grab when it needs it. Okay, now this is where the real magic happens. See, AIs don't really understand words. They understand numbers. So each one of those text chunks gets run through a special model that translates its meaning into a long string of numbers. We call this a vector. It's kind of like giving every single piece of information its own unique GPS coordinate in a huge library of ideas. So what you end up with is this. These text chunks are now numerical vectors. And the really cool part is that chunks with similar meanings get similar coordinates. This is the key that lets the AIs search for meaning and context, not just simple keywords. So here's how it all comes together. When you ask a question, your question also gets turned into one of these vector coordinates. The system then instantly searches the entire database for the text chunks with the closest GPS coordinates to your question. It grabs those top matches, hands them to the LLM with your original question, and basically says, okay, here's everything you need to know. Now answer the question. Okay, so we've been pretty deep in the how, but now let's talk about the why. Why does this even matter? Because this isn't just some clever techie trick. It literally changes everything about how we can use AI in the real world. I mean, the applications are just massive. Imagine a customer service chatbot that doesn't guess your company's return policy, but actually reads it from the official internal document. Or think about asking detailed questions about your own private financial reports and getting factual, verifiable answers back. Plus, you get to keep all your sensitive data in-house because you're bringing the knowledge to the model, not sending your private data out to some public model. In this quote here from SoftBank CEO, it points to something even bigger. RAG makes it possible to create specialized, sovereign AIs. So instead of just relying on these generic models trained on the English-speaking internet, companies and even entire countries can build AIs that are grounded in their own data, their own culture, and their own language. And that is incredibly powerful. So here's the real takeaway. Retrieval augmented generation helps AI evolve from being a know-it-all to being a learn-it-all. It gives it the power to learn from specific, trusted sources that you provide. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Now that we've basically given our AI a library card and an open book, what should we ask it to read next? The possibilities, well, they're just getting started.